Yo. Let's see if everything's working. Yo, what up, New Horizons Music? Toby Prime ist am Start. Schauen wir mal, ob alles funktioniert. Also. Okay. I think everything is working. Or at least I hope so. I would love to tell if you could tell me if everything is working, if you hear the in Fruity Loops audio, and if you can hear me, if everything sounds right. In the meantime, how are you all doing in quarantine? Are you doing fine? I'm pretty bored, so let's make some music, I think. Ugh. So depending on the mood right now, I think we'll make something with my analog gear, which is, I think we can take, I don't know if you can see it, but it's this stuff right here. Let's see. Let's start with some percussions, I think. Gut, passt alles, schreibst. Helltouch. I'm still not sure if I should do in German or in English, because I think New Horizons Music is English speaking. The other ones are all Germans because I know them. It's always hard to tell if... fuck it, I'm doing it in English. So, first let's try and make something with some cool drums, shouldn't we? I have here my private sample pack, which will never come out, and yeah. Now we're talking. Now there are a bit more people. Let's go. So first of all, we're going to start with the kick drum. I'm not bringing in just samples. This is actually the kick drum I sampled out of Again Wither, which sounds like this. At the sampling part, I think it took a bit. I let in a bit too much of the click, which you can hear. So we'll process that later. But I like to do what I like to do is combine it with the yuck kick, which I also sampled out of the track, both times from Joyride. And yeah, both together sound like shit, of course, but we will combine them. So that's basically the first thing I do in a track. It's try to organize. My drums are always red, and that's a good tip I can give everybody, basically, because if you have an organized project and you know where your automation clips are, and if you know where your, for example, the drums are, you can work so much faster than just using like no colors and nothing. So yeah, we have now routed the two kicks in the mixer and create a bus channel, which is called kick bus, and my bus channels are always white. And first thing I'm gonna do is route both kicks into the channel, and they sound pretty shit together right now. Another good tip is for all the people who use who produce in Fruity Loops. At some point, I think you wondered, why can't I zoom in more? And there is actually a setting which allows you to zoom in pretty much to the waveform. And if you go into the project tab here, there is a time base which you can set to 900. It resets the scale of the arrangement bar, and you can zoom in much further, which allows me to, for example, cut the top kick right here and get it way tighter together. The only thing which is bad is that the time base takes up a lot of CPU, so I normally stick with 120. Now the kick sounds like this. Still pretty shit because it's some stereo parts, so we make the kick mono. and cut down the frequencies right here. If there are any questions you would like to ask, I can see the chat. I can answer that. If you have anything you want me to ask, I will probably live stream only about 30 minutes because, yeah, I don't know. It's a test live stream. I just got the cam, this one, which is standing right there on a cardboard thing I built. And I wanted to test out if you can get it like with the lightning and stuff to get the blurry background and maybe for some YouTube videos. I also have the second cam, which is this one, which I probably install over the synthesizer for some future explanation things. And yeah, now back to the track. So again, if there are any questions, shoot them up. The next thing is, which I mostly add, is as I said at the beginning, the first kick has a lot of click in the beginning of the kick, which you can hear, and now we will shape the kick, the first thing I always do is like add an EQ. I have a preset here which takes out the stereo part in the low end and just takes out the high end to give it a more analog feel. And the second thing is I add a plugin called Shaperbox, which allows me to cut the kick in certain areas of the frequency spectrum, which, for example, I don't want to have that high click, the long click. And for that, we go just here. And you can, if you have a 4 on the floor beat, you can just drag it down here and cut the high frequencies on 4 on the floor type beat. So if I drag this down, I also use this to sidechain, but if I drag this down right here, the attack of the kick gets way shorter. The thing is, if you want to do, for example, like triplet tile type things. Oh, there are some questions. What are your vocal sample packs? Depending on... normally, I don't really use vocal sample packs because everybody uses them. I do once in a while use them from Splice, probably old soul vocals. But the thing is, if you have an old... on the old vinyls, there were at some part at the B side, if you turn the vinyl around, you have like the B side with the acapella. And I'm not saying it's totally legal to rip those acapellas, but if you process them like and only use a snippet, nobody will ever notice. For example, I did this quite a lot in No More, for example, and in a few tunes I can show you later on. I also did that. I also have a few samples here which I searched out, like those. And they work as just to fill out the spectrum of the track and give it a bit more energy. But for some main parts, I try to really get some unique, I don't know, ripped samples from a track I found online. So there is no real sample pack. Das Einfärben zieht aber auch wieder Zeit. Ja, stimmt, das Einfärben zieht. Es gibt, dauert schon eine Zeit, aber das Ding ist, wenn du ein Projekt dann hast, wie ich habe gestern ein Projekt, einen offiziellen Remix für einen richtig großen Artist fertig gemacht und der hatte ungefähr 200 Spuren und wenn du dir vorstellst, du hast in dem Track quasi 200 Spuren mit nochmals 100 Automation Clips, dann wird es einfach ein bisschen unübersichtlich und wenn du, wie vorher schon gesagt, 50 mal Shaperbox hernimmst und irgendwas zu Sidechain und du immer die gleiche Farbe von Sidechain her hast, dann kennst du dich am Schluss nicht mehr aus, welcher Sidechain zu was passt und du brauchst dreifach so lang, bis du quasi das wiederfindest. Deswegen, es kostet zwar Zeit, aber am Schluss irgendwie zahlt es sich für mich persönlich aus. Ich meine, wenn es eine zu große Umstellung ist, ich kann keinem vorschreiben, was er zu machen hat, arbeite wie du willst, aber ich kann mir halt so irgendwie besser behelfen. Wo kriegst du die B-Seite her? Die B-Seite ist meistens irgendwo im Internet, auf YouTube. Ich gebe einfach meistens ein Soul, Gospel, A Cappella, schau halt durch, und die mit den wenigsten Klicks nehme ich dann, die was am unbekanntesten sind, irgendwie, dass nicht, irgendwer sofort draufkommt. Also, also ich habe keinen Vinyl-Player hier und rip die Sachen von echten Vinyls. Ich schaue einfach auf YouTube und was ich da finde. Es ist eigentlich ganz simpel, aber das machen die großen Artists auch. In Joyride hat zum Beispiel in einem Livestream mal gesagt, dass er genau das gleiche macht. Abstract letztens auch im Livestream einfach, er googelt und sucht YouTube A Cappellas, die er rippen kann, und natürlich lässt er dann von irgendeinem Label die Rechte clearen, aber dazu bin ich leider noch zu klein. Aber ja, also im Grunde einfach googeln, 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 bis man was Praktisches findet. Aber im Grunde so Splice hat auch coole Sachen. Da gibt es ein Pack, das heißt Warehouse Sample Pack, und da sind ein paar A Cappellas drin, die richtig geil sind. So, back zum Track. Wir haben jetzt einmal die Shaperbox gemacht und im Grunde, ich kann euch zeigen, wie... Oh, sorry. I can show you how to MIDI sync. There's an option where you can MIDI trigger the whole process, which you basically just have to enable an input port, which I set to 3, MIDI out, which I also set to 3, and now every time I press a button on my keyboard, you see that the not beat synced, MIDI triggered. MIDI one shot is it's MIDI one shot beat. So if you hit the button, the kick will automatically duck. I leave the low end because I liked it on a kick. So we call this kick trigger. Just give it a red color. Click on here, kick trigger, and just paste it right here and fill it out with 4 steps. And now we have, every time the MIDI trigger plays, we have a shorter kick, yeah. My dog RageMode's about to teach y'all boys, and I mean, I'm not sure that I can teach you much because I don't know. I just do things. I would not consider myself a professional because I do things my way. Luckily, they work out. I developed a good ear with what is working and what not over the past couple of years, but I would not say I can teach you some tips and tricks what I do in my workflow, but I can't really tell you the secret about how to make an EDM banger. What's the shortcut for autocolor? It's F2. If you go on, for example, it's a bit tricky in Fruity Loops because if you selected this one and want to color that, you really need to select it first, then press F2, and you can select the channel. You can also hold shift and click, and it highlights it. On patterns, you need to either click on them and then select it, or you can just right click and rename it. Another cool shortcut is if you want to group tracks, for example, you don't have to go in here, group with the track above. You can also go and right click and just press G, so you can really fast group tracks together. Yeah, the next step on the kick would be some compression. There are a lot of compressors you can use. You can of course use the Fruity compressor, but just get one good SSL glue compressor, for example. Most of you know this, the glue. It is good, but if you really want to step up your production game, actually Subshock and the Evangelos, don't get me wrong if I can't spell their names. Subshock told me about a compressor which is called Stanson CS, and this is by far the best compressor I've ever used on a kick drum. And I set it to my default settings to, there is no amount is basically the threshold. Makeup, of course, gain, attack and release is very high and very low to set the minimum. So basically this is not affecting the kick at all. Okay, it's affecting a bit because it's too loud. If we lower this, there shouldn't be nearly any impact on the kick. So what I want to do is to get a really punchy kick to cut through the mix. And the thing is how we're gonna how we're gonna do it is increase the amount so that the kick hits around 4 dB or gain reduction. Then you can lower the attack. And a good thing we learned in university about a few semesters ago is the basic understanding of a compressor is the attack. The lower the attack, the less transient goes through. If you, for example, go with a 3 millisecond attack, the first 3 millisecond of the kick won't be affected by the compressor, which means that you get through the transient, which I really want in my mix because I really want the punch of. I rather use short kicks and a deep bass line than long kicks and a short bass line. It's kind of my kind of approach on stuff. So I lower the attack a bit and leave a few milliseconds to get the punch through, and then increase just the makeup. I think we need to get down a bit with the. Another good. There's another question. Auf welcher Uni bist du? Ich studiere zurzeit Multimedia Art im Puch-Urstein in der FH. Das ist bei Salzburg. Ist ein allgemeines Multimedia-Studium, aber ich bin halt im Fachbereich Audio und es ist immer schwierig, wenn du Musikproduktion lernen willst, ist es, glaube ich, nicht das Richtige, weil du lernst wirklich viele Bereiche von Musikproduktion, aber nicht, wie du zum Beispiel ein guter reiner EDM-DJ wirst. Du kriegst einen guten Einblick in die Materie, aber so, wenn du sagst, du bist ein reiner DJ und möchtest nur Musik machen, dann ist es keine Uni, weil wir lernen auch Games-Stuff und so, also wie man Audio in Games platziert und so weiter. So, yeah, and basically that's how I finish my kicks in every step. It took about 5 minutes, 6 minutes if you leave out the talking, and you have a good sounding kick. The next thing I mostly do is get some hi-hats in. I mean, I have here my favorites. It's probably everybody knows this hat sound, which you can easily find on Splice. I just copied it in the folder. And yeah, it's also called hat and gets an own channel. For the top drums, I also create our own bass channel. Who had thought it? Which I call top bass. And the thing is, why I create so many bass channels is that I can mix it later way easier. For example, if you have the kick is too loud, you just lower the kick volume. If you want your kick to punch through the mix more, you lower the top volume, and that's a really good thing I could recommend you to create bass channels. And I think I really talk too much. I really need to start up the production. I mean, we're 20 minutes into the live stream, and we have kick and hi-hat. Wow. The next thing, I want a clap. Let's take this one, which is a really housey, roomy clap. Clap again, routing that into the top channel and low cutting it at around. Hast du irgendwas am Master oben während dem Produzieren? Eigentlich nicht. Ich habe mal quasi Template gemacht, wo zum Beispiel alle Tracks Spots sind. Und okay, I think that's good for everybody who's watching in English right now too. So I haven't used anything on the master. So there is the original master channel where I have Wave Candy, which is just a basic meter plugin, which I have on my second screen up here, which shows me the overall loudness. Then I have another loudness meter, which gives me the integrated LUFS, because a good mix should be around -7 LUFS. But we can talk to that later. Then I have a signalizer, which is basically another oscilloscope, which I have on my right screen. And then SonarWorks, which takes out unwanted frequencies. SonarWorks is, for example, you have the measurement microphone and you measure your room, which basically cuts out then the unwanted frequencies and make it even more linear. This is on the master channel, and then I have a pre-master, which is just a channel linked to the left side, and every other tracks go into the pre-master channel, and the pre-master goes into master, and I'm mastering afterwards on the pre-master channel and disabling the master at rendering so that I don't have Sonarworks on my final master. So, but during the process of just creating some tunes, I'm not really using anything on the master. I mean, if you want to get your tunes sounding fat, you can add a limiter. I use the invisible limiter of AOM, which you just can crank up a bit, so it's limiting, so it's imitating this sound of a fat sound immediately, but I wouldn't recommend it. I had a time where it just put a lot of stuff on the master during the production, and it really fucked up my whole mixing routine which I had. So I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah, it's called Warehouse Rave. It's on Splice. It's for free, and there are a lot of cool vocals in there. And yes, -7 LUFS. I mean, Spotify is on -14, I think, but you always need to think about, if you're making a pop song, you can regulate the whole song down to -14 or mix it to -14, because you don't want it to be played in clubs. If you make a club tune, for example, you want to have it as loud as possible without distorting. This is it's something from the DJ side, which I think if you have a loud track and it's louder than the other one, it still punches a bit more out of your mix, and I think that's the reason why we still push the track so loud. But -7 is totally okay, so you have not too much compression from Spotify, and it's still loud as fuck. Yeah. Okay, the clap is definitely too long. Let's add some percussions. I have a pre-made loop right here, which is sounding like this. I need to, I think it's 126. Again, top loop, which we route into the top. Okay, that's not fitting at all. Is it 128? I think it's 128. I wouldn't say overdoing. You can limit it. You can push it to -5, -4, if you are aware that Spotify regulates it down even more. So it can be that your track sounds quieter than a -7 LUFS tune on Spotify. If you get the mix to the DJ, of course it will sound louder. But I mean, as long as it's not distorting, you can do it. So the only thing which you really never want is a distorted master. And it's as I said in the beginning, I'm not a professional. I'm just doing it my way, which obviously some kind of works. For me, -7 was always a figure which worked the best in the club and in Spotify, for example. I think Apple Music is even lower, and YouTube, but I'm not sure. There's probably a list online where you can check that out. But you're not overdoing it. -5, -4 is totally okay if it's not distorting. So what I wanted to show you now is, because the loop is, I think, on 128, how to time stretch really simple without fiddling around with the stretching algorithm here. You just go in, if you know the BPM of the loop, you can just go right click here, auto detect, go to type BPM, and just type 128, and it automatically stretch it to the project beat. Now I just need to yeah, that should be fine. And I'm muted. Fuck me. Yeah. The only thing I said is that I use a transient processor to process the transients of the kick, which is pretty much simple things to do. So to give it more bounciness, to give it more groove. If you have any questions regarding anything on Fruity Loops or anything else, just write them in the chat. I mean, I have plenty of time. I don't know how long to stream because we're already in 30 minutes. But if you have any questions, you can ask them now. Maybe later on I will be gone because I ja, man hört deine Stimme nicht mehr. Ja, ich habe vorher probiert, ob okay, in general, is there a problem because I'm not using headphones? I'm still using my monitors. And is there a problem that the playback is going back into the microphone and causing any distortion or phase cancellation? That would be interesting. Maybe I will use some kind of gate that ducks the microphone audio when there's, or ducks the microphone audio. That's right, if the speakers are playing. But anyway, let's continue with the tune. We only have the drums by now. Maybe I'll show how to make a good synth. So, yeah, now let's use, for example, the neutron Behringer, which I have a preset. Are we hearing? Oh no, we need to. Is it receiving any signal? Oh no, I'm such an idiot. Because the shaper box is playing at 3. We need to put the shaper box on 2. Still working, and the neutron on 3. Is it? Why isn't it not receiving any MIDI signal? Let me just. Huh? You should have MIDI signal, boy. Is it even connected? Is it working with the mini log is connected? Okay, maybe I'm. That's strange. Am I getting any signal right here? Okay, I get signal from this synth. Yeah, then forget the synth. I will try to fix it for the next stream. How am I preparing my sidechain? Is Kickstart enough, or is there something better? Yes, there is something better. You can use Kickstart, but in my opinion, it's not the best. It's only for some basic elements, I would say. I always, for example, sidechain, if we add, let's add quickly a bass. I have a massive patch here, which, let's go to the browser, let's go to my sounds, and there is a preset called, which sounds like this, and we have to turn that down, so it's not. And synth, let me just organize it. Synths are always blue. We route this quickly into a side chain channel, which is black, so we can separate a bit from the. Of course, you can use Kickstart, but for me, I mostly use Shaperbox. The only reason is because I have a preset here made RageMode sidechain, which sidechains the low end. So it gives a good bounce between kick and low end at a sub bass. The mids are mainly sidechained like shaper box, and the really highs are given a bit less room in the sidechain, so they come up even faster to fill up the space in between kick and everything. So if we go for a simple. And then we just use my. Oh my god, which is this? I think it's this one. which is just a preset like some enabled in a rack. You can also save mixer files where I have my own. And after some I think okay, let's use a different let's use the analog chains. I mean, it's not 200 IQ sidechaining, but it just works better. You can it's just a combined way. For example, a thing I did before I discovered Shaper Box is that I sidechained the sub bass separately, I sidechained the mid bass separately, and I sidechained the top bass separately. But having everything routed into one channel, it really makes it working with sidechain easier. So let's try if this sounds better. Oh shit. Let's turn out the down the preamps here. And I need to cut the low end here. And another good tip, if you are the topics EQing, do me one favor and never use a brick wall EQ. The thing is that this one creates so many distortions and resonances and even changes pitch of some frequencies, which we learned 3 days ago in online university. So just use some slopes like 24 dB per octave and just set it a bit higher. Like this. Okay, this works. So if we now combine those with the drums. I mean, if we now compare it to Kickstart, we can do this. Just open Kickstart, use this plugin. For me, the Shaper Box is a bit tighter, and if you add, for example, now the sub, a plugin for creating subs is there's you can use either the simple 3x oscillator with just a sine wave, or what I do lately is going into Flex, and there's there is a pack called Mobile Tune 808s, and I use the Synth Clean 808, which has a bit of click at the beginning. And if we now route that as a sub into the sidechain, the synths should sound like this. And with the drums it sounds like this. Oh shit, yeah, my synth is playing in the background. Is it hearable? Fuck, sorry. Because it sometimes messes with my interface, and I hope this was not too disturbing. Now it should be gone because I cancelled it in the mixer. And now the things you can do is, again, create a bus channel for synths and route that into the sidechain and route the synths into here. You can also route the sub bass into the sidechain, into the synth bus. Oh shit, let me just lower the ISO a bit so we get more. You can also lower the time base to 48 if it doesn't eat up too much CPU like this. And now if we compare it to Kickstart, for me, this shaper box just gives me more control over the whole sidechaining process. Of course, there's nothing against using Kickstart, but for me, if you come at some situations where you want, for example, I don't know, some different rhythms or whatever, you really can change it way more easily here than with Kickstart. So, I mean, I can't say you what to use, but for me, it's just Kickstart. Yeah, now maybe we can quickly master it before I end the stream. The first thing I do is add a limiter. Preferably invisible limiter, because there's a setting which you can set the overshoot to through, which basically allows the signal to pass the limiter. And let's get oversample and just push it, for example, to 2 dBs, and latency low, left and right. Oh shit. Yeah, and we need to wait because Fruity Loops just decided to freeze. Fuck off. Oh my god, are you kidding me? Okay, let's play through this scenario. We go back into Fruity Loops, open it up. Go here into let the load the standard plugins. Go to backup and load up the backup file if you have backup enabled. Is it still hearable? You shouldn't hear the synth. Wait, hold up. This synth? No, there's nothing connected to the master. The hardware synth is cancelled down because I turned down the mixer, so you shouldn't be able to hear it. So we're back at it again. Probably not have added here the yeah. So as I said, invisible limiter, and push it like 2 dBs, get through. Afterwards, I use an EQ with the same settings to cut out the low and see what's going on. Like this. Afterwards, you can use wait a minute. If I press play here, no, just to be sure, it's not playing anymore. Afterwards, you can use, there's a plugin called Gullfoss. Maybe a few some have heard the Soothe plugin, which is basically an AI mixing tool. I use it on a master just a bit to polish it. So we go up here and cancel out all frequencies under 100 Hertz and all above 70,000. Then just add 10% of recovery and 10% of tame. And it basically EQs out some frequency, unwanted harmonies, or not harmonies, frequencies and resonances. The next thing I mostly do is again add a compression, which is basically, yeah, I need to turn it down. I don't know. I don't have settings. It just depends on the track every time. And the last steps are again limiter and the last steps are again limiter and Okay, since we had a small problem with the audio, it's the first stream. I hope you excuse that. The only thing I have added is just another limiter, some compression, and some basic EQing, and that's it on my master channel most of the times. Yeah, and I think that's it. Thank you all for watching. We streamed 45 minutes, and I think for the first stream it's not that bad. You can always write me your questions or something on Instagram if you want. And yeah, see you next time probably.